Coming up on this episode of The Angle Show, we're going to be talking about Daniel Cormier, Brock Lesnar. We're going to talk about Sammy Guevara addressing backstage issues in AEW. And yes, we're going to talk about those AEW superstars, those wrestlers, those top guys who were expected to go back to WWE, but it turns out it's not happening. I'm going to break it all down right here on The Angle Show. All right, guys, so I want to kick things off with Daniel Cormier. Obviously, he's no stranger to the WWE universe. Last time we saw Daniel Cormier on WWE programming was when he was a special guest referee for the Fight Pit match, which I think was Extreme Rules, if I remember correctly. But it was Matt Riddle versus Seth Rollins. They were settling their feud. DC was the special guest referee, and honestly, I liked it. Now, if you guys don't know, Daniel Cormier is a legendary UFC fighter, former heavyweight, former light heavyweight champion, just a really good athlete in the UFC, and of course, a lot of people were thinking maybe he would have a future with WWE. At times, there was rumors that he would be a commentator or some sort of special guest referee more often, enforcer. There was even rumors at one point that he could be a manager in the WWE. There's just been so much stuff said about Daniel Cormier in the WWE, and nothing has obviously transpired other than a few appearances here and there. Now, with that being said, Daniel Cormier was talking to Justin Barrasso from Sports Illustrated, and he was like jokingly talking about Brock Lesnar, saying, if Brock gets in his way, he would slap him upside his head. And again, this was something that was said in a jokingly way, but the reason why this is brought up and the reason why this is even a conversation on social media is because Daniel Cormier is going to be doing media coverage for ESPN for WrestleMania 39 this year. Now, keep in mind, WWE is all about making big moments. WWE is going to be in SoFi Stadium, being in California, being near Los Angeles. This is going to be a massive event for WWE. WWE goes Hollywood. The stars are coming out. And WWE likes to make moments. The one that stands out to me, obviously, is the infamous Rob Gronkowski moment where he jumped the guardrail several years ago. The security guard did not know he was actually part of the show. That was super funny. But the point that I'm making is that when it comes to celebrity involvement, WWE is not shy of utilizing celebrities in WrestleMania. So with Brock Lesnar and Omos having this big time match, and it's in WrestleMania, it's obviously Los Angeles. I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked if Daniel Cormier somehow did get involved with Brock Lesnar, maybe even a face-to-face. I'm just saying this guy he's going to be there. And WWE wants to capitalize off, real life stuff. There's always been that intrigue that Brock Lesnar and DC would have a UFC fight that obviously didn't pan out. My point that I'm making is don't be shocked if we get Daniel Cormier involved in WWE somehow. Whether that means he's wrestling or not, I don't know. But if not, it's okay. I'm okay with that. I do want to see Daniel Cormier commentate for WWE, though, because I feel like he would be a really good voice for the show. Guys, I want to talk about Sammy Guevara. Whether you like him or hate him, Sammy Guevara has been quite controversial in the last year or so because there's been a lot of reports about Sammy Guevara. There was talks about the backstage fight with Andrade. And it just so happens that AEW announces All Access. So now the Sportster has like a little interview or whatever with Sammy Guevara, and Sammy Guevara insisted that he has no problems with anybody in AEW. He says, what's up to everybody? He says the internet likes to spin a story. I understand negativity brings in those clicks. This is one of those things where Sammy Guevara knows exactly what he's doing. But I also want to just kind of point out that AEW does like to blur the lines. And I think it's very, very easy for AEW, and we've seen this time and time again. We saw with Andrade. Andrade was supposedly leaving AEW, and he had a whole bunch of issues with AEW, and there was all this drama with AEW. But it actually turned out that Andrade was just injured, and that's why he couldn't have his match with Preston Vance, which was loser leaves AEW, or whatever it may be. So the thing is with AEW, being that they like to blur lines, when you hear of drama or backstage fights, I always say take things with a grain of salt or a pinch of salt, as someone might try to correct me. But my point that I'm making is that AEW is going to try to blur the lines. I'm not saying the backstage issues don't exist, but what I'm saying is AEW for a long time has been filming for AEW All Access, and these little stories, these little dramatic negative stories that Sammy Guevara is referencing are being involved in the show. And the thing is with pro wrestling fans, they do tend to love the backstage antics and the stories and the drama. So that's why this is being done. It gets people conversing. I think, for Sammy Guevara, by the way, he was trying to get over as a heel. having these stories leak made Sammy Guevara a very hated wrestler. And it just turns out that maybe none of this was actually happening for real. So it's a very cool thing to see that AEW has All Access, because I like those reality shows. I think they're great for wrestling. I think it's good for people to get involved with it. Even if you don't like wrestling, I think you might be interested in watching it. So we'll see how some of these stories and things are portrayed. But maybe the drama isn't actually as bad. Maybe it's just all been painted to be that way to get certain people over in certain circumstances. But we'll find out. And for our final story of today's video, guys, we are talking about FTR, the top stars that have been rumored to go to WWE. And again, we're talking about blurred lines. This is something that we've been talking before the CM Punk all-out, brawl-out story. We said that AEW has plans to blur the lines within stories, and you'll never really know what is real and what is not. And it's kind of become an interesting thing because throughout the last several months, there have been tons of things happening in AEW. I just mentioned the Andrade thing, but there's been a ton of things that have happened in AEW where fans really just don't know how to decipher whether it's legit or not. And now FTR did a great job of playing this into their hands because they weren't getting booked. They said they were taking some time off to reevaluate their contracts in April. And then obviously we talked about the story of FTR and Dax Harwood accidentally posting the contract, the WWE contract on the table, and just all of these things are happening. Well, now PW Insider is actually reporting that the belief is FTR is under long-term deals with AEW, and their disappearance from television and all of this teasing about going somewhere else was just part of the storyline, which again, this is what AEW fans love. They love the backstage stuff. Wrestling fans who are on the internet love guessing where people are going to go, and they buy into the stuff. And I said it in my previous videos. I said, again, they might be trying to blur the lines. If they go to WWE, great. I think they would work out very well with Triple H and his booking. But FTR does belong in AEW. And there are title matches that should happen in AEW. And there's tag team matches that should happen in AEW that definitely haven't happened yet. So my point that I'm making is FTR is not going to WWE because that was never really on the table. I am going to throw a little bit of a negative comment out here, though. Just a little small thing. Even though it's storyline, and that's great. For certain circumstances, it makes sense. But I don't want to see AEW get in the habit of constantly teasing their wrestlers going to their competitor. Because I think there's other ways you can get people bought into your stories. But let's not tease everybody going to WWE, because at the end of the day, if you're AEW, if you're the alternative, why would you ever want to script something where your company is not the desirable product? And I need somebody to really make some sense out of that, because that's genuinely how I feel. But nonetheless, FTR is staying put in AEW. I think that's a good move. Nothing wrong with that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time right here on The Ango Show.